Quick question, especially for the one person who voted for this movie in that poll I posted to YouTube. You know who you are, but you are all free to participate, of course. I have to ask, did the writers Gary Dauberman and Blair Butler have a problem with Megan? Because I cannot be convinced that they didn't have it out for her. I felt this way when I watched Until Dawn in theaters, and when I watched it again at home, I was thinking maybe I was overreacting. It's been a minute since I watched the movie, my memory is buns, so maybe it wasn't as bad as I remember it being. Ooh, but it was though. It is so bad. Hello friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm here catching up on movies, you know the drill. Whether you're a longtime subscriber or follower, or you are here with me for the first time, I am thrilled to have you here. If you are looking for detailed plot breakdowns, you won't find them here, but stick around for my spoiler-free thoughts and honest opinions, usually on the latest releases, but right now I'm just trying to get back on track. In my defense, my honey wanted to go to Micro Center. He wanted to get a new computer, so now I have his old new computer. He got this thing last year, so he gave it to me, and I've been a little bit distracted. Anywho, with that all out of the way, get comfortable and let's get into today's episode on Until Dawn. 1 year after her sister disappeared, Clover and her friends head to the remote valley where she vanished to search for answers. Exploring an abandoned visitor center, they soon encounter a masked killer who murders them one by one. However, when they mysteriously wake up at the beginning of the same night, they're forced to relive the terror over and over again. As always, I want to get into the themes of the film, or at least my take on it. Now, I know you might be expecting me to get right into the Until Dawn video game of it all, and we will, but later. I think Until Dawn hits the idea of survival versus living over the head, over and over and over again. It's very in your face and not hard to miss. That said, I don't really mind that it's painfully obvious. Please keep in mind, there was a level of silly and low expectation I had going into this movie. I've said it before, I was excited when Until Dawn was announced, but if you caught, it was one of my previous episodes, then you know that I mentioned how with more and more coming out about this movie, I was just getting more and more disappointed, but I was still willing to give it a shot. All of that said, I connect with the idea of survival versus living. After going through trauma, in this case losing a loved one, you cannot just sit still. You have to get up, you need to fight, and maybe not even fight because it's not easy. At the very least, keep moving forward. I do wish it was all more organic. There are a few moments in the film that I really liked, but overall it was just so plain from the story to the dialogue. Characters even have lines like, "You don't survive by sitting still," and "You can't sit still for the rest of your life. That's not living." And I couldn't help but roll my eyes a little. While we're on the topic of trauma and survival, I want to take a moment to talk about some of the film's heavier content and potential triggers. There is a lot that you can get from the trailers, and if you've played the video game, then you have some ideas, but there were still some things that surprised me. To be honest, I think the most upsetting thing in this movie is what we've already been talking about. Losing a loved one and the aftermath of living through something like that. I will say that, again, the movie isn't subtle or graceful about it. Something about how over the top the execution is pushes it to a place where I don't think it's upsetting, or if it does get upsetting, it kind of pulls it back from that place, if that makes sense. Moving on to the more physical and violent triggers, there's a lot of blood, guts, and brain matter. It's all shown on screen. Someone is hit by a car, bodies explode, cannibalism, body horror. There is transformation, assisted suicide, murder, and suicide is mentioned. There are more triggers, so please do your own research if you feel like you need to. As always, I will leave a link to the website Does the Dog Die in the description to start you off. Just make sure you're in a good headspace before watching. Now, I know that some of us feel some type of way about this movie, but I am still going to talk about some of the W's that it managed to pull off. If you've heard me talk long enough, then you know that we are eventually going to start talking about practical effects. I love practical effects, and this movie pulled off so much that I was not expecting, and so much that proves they just had a problem with Megan. Yeah, I'm still on that. Anyway, a few scenes had interesting composition that elevated a moment and really caught me by surprise. There's also a pretty good moment of dread that had me shook. I have to say that I'm not completely on board with the way this movie plays with time, but I do like the tension and survival, even if these elements didn't always stick the landing. Overall, the tone is fine. I like that the movie feels self-aware, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and there is humor sprinkled throughout, so the movie doesn't get too heavy, and the back and forth between levity and that feeling of dread really kept me locked in, even if the dialogue threatened to pull me out of the movie. Moving on to the cast, I do love Peter Stormare stepping into the role of Dr. Hill again. He wonderfully brings to life a calm and professional, yet sinister and unhinged character. Even if you've only seen the movie, it's clear that this character has a history and layers, even if we still need to unravel that mystery. The rest of the cast is fine. I think they have good energy. It seems like they had fun filming, and they are believable with their running and screaming. I do think there's something not connecting though, and maybe it's the chemistry or maybe it's just the writing. I think they all did well with the material, and there are a few standout moments. Now, once I was really sitting with the movie and watching it for what it was, I actually enjoyed all the little different horror elements the film brought together. You've got the paranormal, psychological tension, jump scare, suspense, slasher, and found footage. Again, elements that didn't entirely stick the landing, but they were still entertaining in their own ways. Visually, the lighting, shadows, and composition work really well together. Sometimes. They added to the tension and suspense most of the time, and sometimes it was reminiscent of the video game of the same name. Nothing to get excited about though, I don't want to get your hopes up, but it was definitely something that I noticed and I appreciated. Now to the moment we've all been waiting for. We've talked about the good, now let's get into the bad. Usually I go online, I find critiques that we can talk about. Of course, this time it was a lot of the characters are shallow, how they're all just not interesting, and how the ending is anticlimactic. Okay, sure, but this time I kind of just want to talk because I know a lot of us were really disappointed at how not like the game this movie is, so let's get into that. I have to edit myself into this section because I realized there are spoilers for the video game in this section. So if you haven't played Until Dawn and you're interested, I would skip ahead, then go play the game because it's amazing. And they recently released a remake for the PS5, so definitely check that out. I want to take a look at a Reddit post to start the conversation off. In r/movies user Talkdeho? You guys can read it on screen for yourself. So this person says that it's even dumber when you consider that Until Dawn is basically just a mashup of a dozen horror tropes. It's body horror, slasher horror, creature horror, all wrapped into one. And honestly, it could have been adapted to a movie without much issue. Another commenter points out a huge disconnect. The movie centers around reliving the night or essentially respawning, but Until Dawn specifically does not let characters come back from the dead. And finally, another user noted that the director tried to emulate the game's multipath mechanics, saying that it could have worked with two variations happening side by side. So if you're listening and you're wondering what the heck we are all talking about with this video game, Until Dawn is a 2015 interactive drama survival horror game developed by Supermassive Games and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. It's an interactive game where players control 8 friends who gather at a remote mountain lodge a year after the mysterious disappearance of 2 of their friends. The story unfolds over a single night and branches based on the player's decisions. This is presented to the player as the butterfly effect, the game's core gameplay mechanic where players' choices significantly impact the story's outcome and character relationships. As they confront supernatural threats and human killers, players navigate a mix of quick-time events, exploration, and dialogue choices. The game's tense atmosphere, choice-driven narrative, and multiple endings make each playthrough unique. So the thing is, and I literally remember calling my mom right out of the theater because I had like a 45-minute gap between Until Dawn and Revenge of the Sith. I know it's ambitious as hell, but I was telling her that I would have loved for them to release 2 or 3 cuts of the movie and have that kind of be the multi-path mechanic of the game. Don't ask me how this would have been accomplished. I am literally just a girl, but with a budget of $15 million, I feel like it could have been doable. Over in the Until Dawn subreddit, one user wished the movie had gone with a legend trip angle where a new group visits the lodge to find out if the legend of what happened in Until Dawn is true. Another user expanded on that idea. Set it X years in the future. A group of horror fans visit the lodge where the Washington family died. Maybe they find clues like Jessica's jacket or trinkets from the original survivors who were reported to have died in the game. I think these are really interesting ideas and would have been better than what we got. The issue is, and I want to emphasize that this is one movie and only part of whatever story they're trying to tell, and honestly, I think that's the problem. While I was on Reddit, I saw a comment that I think sums up the issue perfectly. This user said that I liked the movie World War Z. I think it's a solid zombie movie, but it's not World War Z. And if you've read the book, you know exactly what they mean. And I know you already know this, but I have to point out that World War Z is a better zombie movie than Until Dawn is a survival horror movie. What I'm trying to say is, this would have been a fine movie if it wasn't called Until Dawn and marketed as a film adaptation. I read a short article from GameSpot that was published back in January where the director, David F. Sandberg, said that the movie has the same tone and vibe, but it expands on the Until Dawn universe. Now that we've seen the movie, we know that the film isn't a direct adaptation of the game's plot, but a new chapter in the same world. Wrapping this section up, I don't even mind that the movie changed the lore. I can kind of see where they're going. I just wish they titled this movie literally anything else. Something that wouldn't carry the heavy weight of the game's name. They could have released this as an original horror movie with some callbacks, Easter eggs, story beats, keep Peter Stormare, keep the Wendigo, that kind of thing, and then make a true Until Dawn adaptation, or at least something that more closely follows the plot of the game, titled Until Dawn, as a sequel to this movie. You can't make everyone happy, but I think this approach could have had potential, and then they can continue to expand from there because, you know, everything needs sequels and franchises nowadays. All right, we are doing a lot of talking, so let's wrap up with my final thoughts. After talking about the good and the bad, the question is Until Dawn worth 1 hour and 43 minutes of your time? I know some of you are already saying no, and you are not wrong, but hear me out. I think if you're unfamiliar with the game and you're kind of dipping your toes into the R-rated survival horror genre, this is a fine starting point. There's some good acting here. I do like Ella Rubin as Clover, and Peter Stormare as Dr. Hill is fantastic. The real highlight of this movie is just getting to watch these characters die over and over and over again, to be perfectly honest, except for my girl Megan. It's entertaining. I was laughing out loud, and the practical effects just elevate the movie. The jump scares are effective, and the tone is appealing for the ups and downs. Again, if you are unfamiliar with the game, the plot is interesting. The concept of reliving the night is engaging, and I like seeing the characters build upon what they learn each night. Is the execution the best with the deepest of deep emotional stakes? No, but I can see how some people might like this movie. I have to say, if you are familiar with the video game Until Dawn, honestly, you're better off spending about 10 plus hours playing the game again. I did check online, and there is no confirmed sequel or continuation in development, but the director has expressed that he'd be open to future installments. I think if they do make a sequel and it's more in line with the video game, then this movie could be worth revisiting, but we'll see. If you don't watch Until Dawn, then just know that the power of friendship is real and it is all powerful. All right, you guys, a huge thank you to everyone who has stuck around with me to the end of the video. Last time we talked, I shared my thoughts on Sinners, and you guys absolutely blew me away with that one. There are so many lovely comments, likes, and views. I cannot express how much that really helps me. Not just like numbers and analytics and all that stuff, but like mentally and emotionally, because I was struggling with that review. So to see it pay off like that, thank you guys so much. Also, Sinners is available to stream, so watch it again or watch it if you have not seen it yet. If you haven't checked that video out yet and you would like to, it's just a click away. If you're watching today's episode on YouTube, you can find the link to that review in the top right corner. And for my podcast listeners, hi, that episode is available for you as well. Your feedback is always appreciated, so please share your thoughts on YouTube in the comments below, and if you're listening on the Spotify app, swipe up and let me know what you're thinking. Let's hear it, you guys, because I know the hate for this movie is loud, and I know people won't always agree with me. I'm honestly on the fence. As a fan of the game, this movie should never have been made. As a movie fan that knows that there is someone out there who would vibe with this movie, I think there's something here. What are your thoughts on Until Dawn? What do you think of the changes they made from the established lore? Like I said, I don't mind the changes. I'm assuming they're going to bring it all together in a way that makes sense. What are your thoughts on what people were saying on Reddit? I'm interested to know what you guys think, so let's get the conversation going. If you are enjoying the content on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. If you enjoy on-the-go listening, then you should definitely check out the podcast. Follow me on Spotify for exclusive episodes. And you might be wondering what's coming soon, what's coming up next. We've got reviews lined up for Thunderbolts, Final Destination Bloodlines, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and I do have tickets to see Ballerina this weekend. So make sure to follow, subscribe so you don't miss out. You can always check out the community tab on YouTube for updates and the occasional poll when I fall behind. I am on Blue Sky at A.Rocket.Review, all one word. I recently was talking about Final Destination. I was talking about Mission Impossible. I'm kind of dabbling in and out of the Yellow Jackets TV show. So if you want to check all of that out, that is where you can find me. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast, or finding me over on Blue Sky, your support, a thumbs up, subscribe, follow, or comment, it truly means so much to me. I'm still building, growing, and learning, and I'm really grateful to have you here with me. Until next time, spread positivity, and please be safe, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, take breaks from the news, stay hydrated, don't forget to eat, and a friendly reminder that it is okay to distract yourself. So happy movie watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.